On the night of December 24, 2014, light snow blanketed Paradise Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where Christmas lights twinkled from every house. Inside a modest home on a quiet country road, festive music played. But suddenly, a scream shattered the peaceful air. A young woman collapsed in the kitchen, blood spreading from a deep cut on her neck, while her husband held a knife and an axe, his eyes blazing with rage. Just hours later, he dragged a heavy black trash bag into a shed, hiding it among piles of old junk in the bitter cold. The next morning, he smiled and took his sons to their grandparents' house for Christmas. That horrifying secret lurked behind a fake smile, waiting to explode. What turns a father into a monster on the holiest night of the year? Welcome to the Case Files, where the dark truths of true crime are uncovered layer by layer under the cold light of reality. Today, we delve into a case that shook Pennsylvania on a bloody, deceitful Christmas Eve. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous case of Bloody Christmas Eve, the Dustin Lee Klopp killing of Stephanie Kilhefner. Part 1. Background and Characters. Paradise Township in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, is a quiet rural community of farms, country roads, and simple family homes. At Christmas, it transforms into a vivid scene, blinking lights on porches, wreaths on doors, and the smell of wood smoke in the icy air. The Klopp home looked just like any other, with a Christmas tree standing in the living room and presents tucked carefully beneath. Dustin Lee Klopp, 35, lived there with his wife and their 2 young sons, one aged 5, the other just 2 years old. Dustin worked blue-collar jobs with his hands, steady but under pressure with a demanding schedule and never-ending bills. He was tall, with short brown hair, often seen in worn work clothes coming home tired at the end of the day. Outwardly, Dustin was the family pillar, sometimes helping friends or relatives fix things around the house. But those close to him said he got irritable after a few beers, especially when money was tight. Stephanie Kilhefner, 34, was the warm heart of the house, a devoted mother with long blonde hair and a radiant smile. She juggled work and caring for the children, always busy preparing dinner, tidying the house, and organizing the boys' routines. They'd been together for years, outwardly happy like many working-class American couples. Stephanie loved the holidays, baking cookies, and singing Christmas songs with her sons. The 2 boys, with bright laughter and innocent eyes, played around the living room and in the small yard. To outsiders, Dustin appeared to be a normal father, taking care of his kids and trying to make ends meet. But behind closed doors, arguments gathered like dark clouds before a storm. Financial pressure, debts, and stress made everything tighter. Friends and relatives recalled Stephanie as kind and upbeat, someone who tried to keep the family together no matter what. Dustin greeted people politely, but sometimes loud arguments leaked beyond the thin walls. Stephanie confided to a few people that Dustin could be jealous and quick-tempered. Nobody guessed those invisible cracks would lead to a deadly abyss. Their daily life circled around rushed breakfasts, hurried work shifts, and quiet nights with the TV on. But darkness crept in, waiting for Christmas night to explode. Have you ever wondered how fragile happiness is before a burst of rage? The Klopp family had moved to Paradise Township, seeking a stable life for their children, a quieter place to raise a family. Stephanie dreamed of simple things, security for her boys, maybe a small vacation one day when money allowed. But reality was harsher. Long working hours left Dustin exhausted. Unpaid bills sat like a weight on the kitchen table. Small spending disputes grew into fierce fights, especially when Dustin felt disrespected or suspected Stephanie of talking too freely with other men. The atmosphere inside the house grew heavy, even as Christmas lights still shimmered softly in the windows. Part 2. warning signs. Months before Christmas 2014, those close to the couple noticed Dustin's behavior changing. He grew more irritable and drank more beer than usual. Empty cans and bottles became a familiar sight, and arguments flared up over money, responsibilities, and jealousy. Stephanie tried to stay calm, but friends said she sometimes called in tears, saying Dustin was angrier and harder to talk to. These signs were like dense fog, blocking vision before the coming tragedy. In the days leading up to Christmas, tension spiked. A heated argument shortly before December 24th left the older boy frightened and crying. Stephanie pleaded for Dustin to calm down, especially for the children's sake. Yet on the surface, everything seemed to return to normal the next day. Dustin could still smile, still go about Christmas preparations like any other father. Pressure mounted like a ticking time bomb, fueled by financial stress and suspicion. Dustin checked his wife's phone and grew jealous of messages and friendships he did not understand. Stephanie began withdrawing from some friends, staying home more, trying to keep the peace for her boys. The children sensed the tension, asking why their father shouted so much. She hid the truth behind a forced smile, telling them he was just tired from work. To outsiders in this quiet Pennsylvania community, it looked like ordinary marital conflict. Arguments, stress, too much alcohol, and not enough money. Empty beer containers increased around the home. Raised voices at night became more common. Yet December 24th would turn those warnings into an inescapable nightmare. The festive air was only a fragile mask, hiding a rising darkness. A short time before Christmas, Dustin missed get-togethers and seemed more withdrawn. Work troubles, money problems, and relationship strain merged into a volatile mix. The seeds of instability built a terrifying picture that would culminate on Christmas Eve, behind a door no one dared to open until it was far too late. Part 5. Revealing the truth. During interrogations, Dustin painted a picture of a man crushed by money problems, alcohol, and jealousy. He claimed he lost control in the heat of the moment. But the chilling detail that he hid her body, cleaned up, and then calmly took the boys to celebrate Christmas told a darker truth. There was time to think, to choose, and he chose concealment over help or remorse. Stephanie's friends and family were devastated when they learned what had happened. They remembered her as optimistic, loving, and always dedicated to her children. Some knew the couple had conflicts, and that Dustin could be volatile, but few imagined it would end in such savage violence. The case stripped away any illusion that this was a simple, drunken accident. It was a brutal murder on the holiest night of the year, carried out by the man who should have protected her. Officials revealed that this kind of case was rare in one particular way: the killer's own call. The district attorney remarked that he could not recall another situation where nearly a full day went by, and then the first sign of a crime was the suspect phoning authorities to confess. It underscored both the horror of the act and the twisted attempt at control Dustin tried to maintain over the narrative, even as the truth came out. An attorney who had previously represented Dustin in an unrelated matter expressed shock when he heard the news. He said both Dustin and Stephanie had always seemed like calm individuals, and that Dustin had never given him the impression of being a violent person. That contrast between the quiet man people thought they knew and the killer who butchered his wife on Christmas Eve became one of the most haunting aspects of the case. Stephanie's body was taken for examination and final arrangements, while the community struggled to process a Christmas Day confession to a Christmas Eve murder. Paradise Township, usually known for its farmland and quiet roads, was suddenly associated with a story of blood, betrayal, and domestic violence pushed to its deadliest extreme. Part 6. Aftermath and Death in Jail. Dustin Lee Klopp was charged with serious offenses, including criminal homicide and abuse of a corpse. He was held at Lancaster County Prison as the legal process moved forward. On paper, a trial and a possible lifetime in prison lay ahead, but the system would never get that far. On the night of February 25, 2015, a little over 2 months after the murder, guards found Dustin hanging in his cell. He had used the bars and what was available to him to end his own life. He was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was already done. Doctors determined that he had suffered severe brain injury from lack of oxygen and declared him brain dead. On Friday, February 27, 2015, life support was withdrawn, and Dustin Klopp was pronounced dead. The county coroner, Stephen Diamantoni, ruled the manner of death as suicide and did not conduct a full autopsy. There would be no jury, no dramatic courtroom testimony, no cross-examination or sentencing. The man who killed his wife with a knife and an axe on Christmas Eve had taken his own life before facing a verdict. For Stephanie's family, there was no sense of legal closure, only the stark reality that both parents were now gone, and 2 little boys were left to grow up without a mother and without a father. The case closed quietly in the paperwork of the justice system, but its emotional impact lingered in the community and in every home that had celebrated Christmas that year, without knowing a mother was lying dead in a shed nearby. Conclusion and message. The Dustin Lee Klopp and Stephanie Kilhefner case chillingly reminds us that behind Christmas's sparkling smiles may lurk deadly darkness and lies. A young wife lost her life brutally. 2 boys were effectively orphaned on the most sacred night of the year. The harsh lesson: listen to domestic violence warning signs, intervene early, and never dismiss escalation when alcohol, jealousy, and rage collide. If you hear yelling, crying, or sounds of violence from a neighbor's home, what would you do? This case urges society to act firmly, support victims, and create paths for help before it is too late. Thank you for joining the case files through this chilling true crime journey. If you found it valuable, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss new episodes. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about a father taking his children to celebrate Christmas right after killing their mother? See you next time, and stay safe and alert. Part 3. The Incident and Crime Scene. Around late evening on December 24, 2014, while families in Paradise Township gathered around Christmas dinners and presents, a violent fight erupted inside the Klopp home. Under the influence of alcohol and simmering rage, Dustin snapped at Stephanie. A physical altercation broke out. He struck her, knocking her to the floor, and the situation escalated beyond any return. In that horrific moment, he grabbed a knife and slashed her throat in a brutal attack. Blood poured from the deep neck wound, staining her clothes and the kitchen floor. But the violence did not stop there. Dustin then took an axe, a tool meant for chopping wood, and struck Stephanie's head multiple times. The blows were devastating and fatal. In a matter of minutes, the mother of 2 young boys lay dead in her own kitchen on Christmas Eve, just a short distance from where the family tree and presents waited for morning joy. Instead of calling 911, panic and calculation blended in Dustin's mind. He dragged Stephanie's lifeless body away from the immediate scene. He placed her in a large black garbage bag, the kind used for heavy trash, and hauled it out to a shed on the property. There, in the cold darkness among tools and clutter, he hid the bag, trying to bury his crime under layers of junk and a plastic tarp. Inside the house, traces of blood and chaos remained, but he tried to clean what he could, wiping surfaces and dealing with bloody clothing. The 2 little boys slept through the night, unaware that their mother had been murdered just meters away. Dustin moved about the house with chilling calm, between cleaning, hiding evidence, and waiting for dawn. The holy night passed not with prayers and carols, but with silence, death, and the cold echo of violence. Part 4. Investigation and Evidence. At dawn on December 25, 2014, Dustin got up as if it were any normal Christmas morning. He prepared cereal for his sons and then drove them to their grandparents' home so they could celebrate the holiday in safety and warmth. The grandparents saw a father arriving with gifts and children, with no idea of the horror left behind at his house. The boys, only 5 and 2 years old, had not witnessed the killing. They only remembered arguments and raised voices before sleep. But by early afternoon, the facade shattered. Around 1 p.m. on Christmas Day, Dustin called authorities and confessed that he had killed his wife the night before with a knife and an axe. It was an unusual moment in law enforcement, a man phoning in his own crime before police even knew a murder had taken place. The district attorney would later say he could hardly think of another case where nearly a full day passed, and the first sign of a crime was a killer's own confession. Police rushed to the property in Paradise Township. They found the shed, broke it open, and discovered the heavy black bag containing Stephanie's body. Her throat had been deeply cut, and her head showed multiple devastating blows from the axe. Inside the house, investigators located blood evidence despite attempts at cleaning. The knife, axe, and other physical evidence tied directly back to Dustin's actions that night. The boys were kept safe with family, while detectives documented the crime scene in painstaking detail. Every bloodstain, every tool, every trace would help reconstruct that terrible Christmas Eve. The evidence was overwhelming. Dustin's confession, the weapons, the hidden body, and his own statements about what he had done and why. As questioning continued, Dustin told investigators that the killing stemmed from an argument, from his anger over finances and suspicions of infidelity. He described punching Stephanie, slashing her throat, and then using the axe because she was still moving. He admitted that afterward, he focused on cleaning up and keeping things normal for the children, even bringing them to their grandparents for Christmas, as if nothing had happened.